All right, I'm with Daniel. How are you doing, Daniel?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm tired. I was away in San Francisco for 3 days, and I used to travel a lot, as regular listeners will know, and I've been doing less since the pandemic started. So I don't have to do it very often, and my body kind of rejected the short flight and the holiday. I'm absolutely shattered. But apart
Oh,
from that, all
really?
good. I thought nothing in a previous life of taking a 16-hour flight to Singapore for one meeting. It was fine. But now I'm getting on in years. It's like, no, you shall have to sleep for hours and hours on end. So there we go. Uh, back back home now. And, well, we got a few things to talk about today. So we can talk about Sheffield United, and the United's women's team, because we haven't caught up on them, both domestically and the Champions League exit. And then, of course, Bobby Charlton. So why don't we start with Charlton? We got the news yesterday, around just a bit before kickoff, I think, wasn't it? An hour or so before kickoff, rumours started circulating, and it was confirmed by his family and the club. We knew he was ill, of course, and so very sad passing of a statesman of football.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Charlton's one of those rarities in that he's not almost Bobby Charlton, is he? He's this concept, an idea of how things are and should be.
Right.
When you play these games, when you think about the kind of football that you'd be, you're always torn between that Roy Keane style of just like full of attitude and aggression and whatever, or that Bobby Charlton style where you're just like gentlemanly and sainted and loved, which sort of feels like that might feel nice.
Bobby Charlton is like a byword for Englishness in a way, isn't he? He was the first sort of globally recognised Englishman.
Well,
it's a cliche.
After Stanley Matthews,
right?
I'd say those two are like from that sort of that golden era of football and post-war, when football was becoming this thing that it is now. Yeah, sort of a way. It was always kind of almost like a cliche of communicating with people when you go abroad. Hey, Bobby Charlton, and they would know that you were all right in some way because you knew who Bobby Charlton was. I don't really think there's been a player like that since then. I mean, there've been figures like David Beckham was obviously married to a pop star, as was Bobby, big cultural figure, but I guess we could argue he stood for the value of determination or persistence or whatever.
Yeah.
But it wasn't quite in the way of Bobby Charlton, who more represented an ethos of brilliance and fair play together.
Yeah.
The way that England likes to look at itself, obviously in total
exactly,
yes. But it's vested in him.
Yeah.
People like it.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Well, look, we're going to talk a little bit more about Charlton's legacy for the backers content this week. But we wanted to recognise it. I do have an anecdote. So I might have told this one on the pod before. I don't remember. I never had spent any time with Bobby Charlton, but I'd literally bump into him outside of Old Trafford. He ran into me looking the other way because there were a lot of people chasing after him.
You're a big lad, in fairness.
I'm fairly big.
You're a unit.
Unit, and I'm somewhat younger than him as well. And he slammed into me, crashed into me, gave me the old two-footer, and then he got really angry with me. I was like, all right. So,
what did he say to you? Tall bastard.
Yeah, something like that. I don't think there were any swear words. There weren't. But yeah, he was very annoyed with me, and then went on his way. But I have forgiven him. You'll be glad to hear.
So. And I mean, the other thing, that I was in Short on Shabbat on Saturday, and there was a guy with a comb over. Thought, Bobby Charlton.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And I thought, and there's also that in the same way, I mean, that those of us probably went to school in the 80s, if you stroked your chin, it means someone's talking bullshit. And if you're sitting there stroking the chin going Jimmy Hill, I have a bit, if far behind his boss, and all the rest. Like Bobby Charlton is also the byword for that particular haircut, and the fact that he was allowed to proceed through life with that haircut tells you the eminence and reverence, esteem in which he was held.
Right,
and rightly so.
It is amazing. No one would actually do that today. You'd be shocked if you saw a comb over, but it was the thing. And yes, you're right. People respected him rather than mocked him for it. All right, we'll talk more about Bobby Charlton later. We had a game this weekend. United won 2-1 at Sheffield United. And, well, can't say this wasn't mostly crap. Because it was.
Incredible. Oh, man.
We got out XG'd by Sheffield United, the team that conceded 8 against Newcastle the other week. So it was not awesome. The thing that struck me about this, obviously, there's still a very lengthy injury list, and some players are coming back or weren't being quite fit enough to play the full 90 this time, or Ten Hag tried something slightly different in midfield. But just the dysfunction in the team and the inability to move the ball around. It was kind of shocking.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I was disappointed when I saw the team because I felt like, particularly with Casemiro out, was an opportunity to try something. And I just want every week to try and move it forward.
Yeah.
And that midfield, I looked at the midfield and I thought, this isn't trying to move it forward. This is a team to just get a result in this game. Because the thing about McT is that he did score those 2 goals the other day, but it wasn't a virtuoso performance that demanded inclusion off the back of it. Plus, we've had International Week, which sort of makes it politically easier for Ten Hag to leave him out. What I've been thinking over these 2 weeks, I mean, God only knows, the things we do during it, is that I know that some people think McTominay is just a load of bollocks. He's not good enough to be a first choice for United. I agree with that. But I remember when Jesse Lingard had his period of being quite good and Gary Neville said he was good enough. Maybe he's like your 16th man who in 1 or 2 games at some point in the season
make a difference.
Gets you something that you might not otherwise have got. And I was kind of wondering, Tomine could sort of be that, a finisher. As in, he's not helpful to the way that you want to play from the start. But when you're trying to crash the box, get goals, he knows where the goal is. He's a good finisher. Yeah. He's not scared. And he might also help you close games down if you're winning. So perhaps he's someone who is worth having to bring on the last 15 if he's happy to accept that.
Yeah.
He's prepared to accept that to play for United rather than go for Fulham or Everton or West Ham, wherever. Start every game. I mean, that's up to him. I'm not judging his choice, but I felt like maybe that would be something he could do for us. But then Casemiro, obviously leaving him out, of a hoo-ha. So you had an opportunity with him injured to try something, but we end up trying nothing. And what we saw is nothing. You can make excuses for Ten Hag really easily. He's got none of his first choice back four. Back four that he has to play with the new goalkeeper, constantly changing. Højlund's played a bit, not played a bit, is young. There's so many excuses, and yet it should not look like that.
It should not, and I don't think if you took 12 players out of the City side that they might not be as good, but they wouldn't look different. And for me, that's something wrong with the coaching there, that he isn't able to get the whole group playing in one way.
But even that, I can excuse him in a sense for that as well, because centre backs, one was bought by Mourinho. It's got Lindelof bought by Mourinho, Maguire bought by Ole, Evans. I mean, what absolute fuck is that? And Dalot bought by Mourinho, whereas Guardiola's been at City long enough so that even the players he doesn't like are bought for him. So they're there to do what he wants them to do. And I think you can't underestimate you've got being in the season, you're like, right, he's got his goalkeeper. He's got Martinez who can pass it forward. He's got a centre forward. And he's now in a position to try and inculcate a new style. All of a sudden, ability to do that's fucked. So do you say,
I do agree with that,
what we were doing before, or we're going to try and do what we were going to do anyway, which is what they basically did the first half of the season. The shit started to go wrong. They're a bit scared now. So they're just sort of tending to whack it forward. And I'm watching that game. Did you think at any point we're not going to win this?
No, because I think there's enough brilliant players that you just expect United to create a chance, right?
Same with Burnley. I thought that too. They're going to win this at some point.
So the two things that kind of surprised me or didn't surprise me or or one were quite how easily Sheffield United were able to get through us with only 30% possession, right? So they created quite a lot of chances, and I think they had 9 passes into the box, right? That's not great. And especially with 2 players there in Amrabat and McTominay that in theory should give more protection. And then the other thing was the kind of passing map. And I don't know whether you check out Mark's stats, but he does a really good breakdown. I think it's automated actually from the data after the games. And yeah, his passing map is sideways from in defensive third and then down the wings. And I think a lot of that is because Amrabat and McTominay were not able to progress the ball into Bruno and Højlund.
So
McTominay, just 1 point on McTominay, which you might be going to say 8 passes in this game. 8. He had 6 at half time. It's just like it would if I was playing in central midfield and I'm 47 years old. I think I might have made more than 8 passes because I'd be going, "Hey mate, give me the ball." I'd got it 8 times.
So I think that we can probably draw a little line between the first half and the second half of this game.
It's true. They were different.
Second half was wank. We had control. Like we controlled that game.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you said, like exactly the same as you. I at no point really thought we won't produce enough moments of quality to win this one. It's like it will happen. And when the goal came, it was coming, which is a sign of a team at least doing something right. That they score when you expect them to. Because for a lot of Ole, the time under Ole wasn't quite the case. I thought Amrabat played quite well in the second half. We've been talking about this for weeks, and I'm sure it won't happen yet. There's going to come a time where you can't justify leaving Garnacho out.
I just don't know how to get him into. We got better with him, and he's more of a threat. I don't think Rashford did badly. I mean, he takes the ball and he takes players on, and he's still like amongst the top 2 or 3 in the league for taking players on. So he's dribbling.
He made the chance.
Yeah, he did. And he had a great ball across for Højlund with his left foot there. And so I don't know exactly how to get Garnacho in the team unless it's Rashford down the right, which of course he doesn't want to do. So, and Garnacho, or at least Ten Hag, doesn't seem to want Garnacho to play in that position either.
So here's a question also that I have of Ten Hag, because I think, fine, you want this new style, but when I look at the players we have, I think, is it possible to play that possession-orientated style when you've got Bruno and Rashford in the team?
I mean, it's very difficult because they're, of course, the types of player. Bruno, the risk taker. It's even worse with Casemiro in the team because he takes risks with the ball as well. And then Rashford, who wants to play into space. So, yeah, sure, absolutely. They're set up to play on the counter. Ten Hag wants wants both worlds, though, doesn't he? He wants to be the best counter-attacking team and a possession-dominant team. And that can be true because that is Liverpool and City both play that way, where they're extremely dangerous. And in fact, United are right up the top of the charts for turnovers, right?
So they are high
turnovers. And they did it in this game.
Making anything of them, really.
No, true. 8 in this game. Right? So they are forcing teams to give them the ball back, and that's exactly what I want. And I think with Højlund, Rashford and Antony in there, they're pretty good at that. Rashford's the worst of them, I think, in terms of the pressing. That's the only thing that Antony's actually good at, as far as I can see. I mean,
I think what Antony is good at is you can give him the ball and he will take it and he will hang on to it.
Yeah,
but we do need to see more
something
attacking
from that. Yeah,
more attacking output from him. It's just so hard to really say anything about the way that he plays football, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's just. Yeah,
I mean, he's missed 7 weeks for reasons, and
without giving him a pre-season. I mean, what's Mount there for then?
Yeah, it's interesting. He didn't play in this game, and I mean, presumably he should be a better version of McTominay, right? Able to score goals, create goals, retain possession, and add some legs in midfield. I don't know why he didn't start this one. Ten Hag didn't talk about it.
It doesn't. We haven't particularly suddenly decided that he can't play with Bruno and one number 6. I mean, maybe we have decided that, but then it would seem. I want us to have decided that because I agree with that point. It just seems unlikely that Ten Hag with it, or we've seen enough to convince Ten Hag. I mean, I guess we'll see what TV picks in midweek and at the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, when Mount came on, Bruno went wide and Mount went into number 10. I hate that. I hate it so much. I mean, I think some of Mount's best performances in his career have come playing wide. He's not going to take anyone on, but he uses the ball well. I don't think he's worse in that position than Anthony. I don't think he offers less than Anthony in all the things you actually want. Press trigger, retention of the ball. He doesn't carry the ball as well, that's true. But he's probably a bigger goal threat. So, I don't know. Mount to me still doesn't stack up as a signing. I don't quite understand why he's there. I hope to be proven wrong, obviously, in that Ten Hag, who knows much more about football than I do, has a plan. It doesn't seem obvious just yet.
No, it feels like we're sort of getting on Mainu being fit and being really fucking good.
He's training
to make this team good. I mean, it's just, I'm not saying I'm like vesting much in him. I'm just saying it feels like the only way this group of players can become a coherent team probably is if he's really good. Maybe there's a midfield in Casemiro, Amrabat and Bruno. Feels like he's missing a little bit of pizzazz, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mainu's the one who could bring balance to the force here. And we've talked about it before, haven't we? He feels like that kind of all-rounder who can add the legs and the quality in possession. But it's a lot to vest on an 18-year-old who's had, well, how many? 2 or 3 appearances for the team. Yeah. So, but he's back in training. He's been training since September, apparently, so he must be close.
And Reguilon must be close as well.
It looks like he might even be back for Copenhagen midweek, so that will also help with the balance. I mean, not that Lindelof did bad yesterday. It's just every time he gets the ball, he's having to look inside because he's not going to use his left foot to, and he's definitely not going around the outside to create space.
You know
for
what?
Rashford.
There's also just gets to a point with a player where I've just seen it up. Lindelof, Maguire, both. I know that they can both play well on occasion. I also know that neither of them are anywhere close to good enough, and looking at them makes me sick. It's like genuinely, it's nothing personal. I just can't bear to see those blokes play for United again because I know with certain players that you might have, you think, well, maybe one of Saka and Dalot. And these are guys I also know aren't good enough, by the way. But I can convince myself that because they're young or there's room to develop, that they can get somewhere. Whereas let's look at a team and see those two. I want to. Yeah.
It's if you look at the data from yesterday's game, it looks like Maguire. It's really high on the charts for possession via carry and possession via pass, right? As in, he moves the ball forward, which is always the kind of the thing that defenders of Harry Maguire say, that this is what he does. It's just that he doesn't move it into any kind of dangerous areas.
It's the speed. At which
and he's slowly.
I don't know if you noticed when he gets interviewed afterwards, he's talking about, I can't remember, I guess the question was something like, and of course you would have felt this was a very important victory, Harron's coming after that narrow win over Brentford. And he goes, I reiterated to the players before the game. And I was just like, shut the fuck up. Your reiterations, fucking reiterating dickhead. No one wants your reiterations. Like, who are you to reiterate? Just play well and leave the reiterations.
He got attracted to the ball in midweek against Italy.
Maybe he was too busy reiterating.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he got sucked into watching the ball. Lives. And he missed it. So, classic Harry.
I mean, I didn't think that goal was massively his fault. But I tell you what...
No, he just got himself in the wrong position.
I'll tell you what was so great about that game was... So, when Rashford's goal, right? The commentary, they're making out like he scuffed it with his cock from 2 yards after Bellingham had run around all of the other team and then farted it across. It's just...
Rashford put the ball like 40 yards out.
And
with 3 Italian... the ball's behind him, and there were 3 Italian defenders between him and the goal. So, it's a brilliant finish by Rashford.
I mean, Bellingham is, is an amazing player. I mean, I can't believe.
I know there's just a loving with Bellingham at the moment that, in the way that Lionel Messi will tap one in from 2 yards, and the commentators will fully cream their pants. The same thing is happening with Bellingham at the moment. He's a great player. I would love to have seen him at United. Unfortunately, Ed Woodward showed him around the training ground, and that was that.
I wonder if he'll just stay at Madrid. I mean,
that's what he said. He wants to stay at Madrid for the next 10 or 15 years, he said.
I know. It's funny that, I mean, again, it's up to him. It's just, you seriously satisfied. I don't know. It just feels like, maybe we just think this because I'm in England. I don't feel like I think that, but just best weekly contests with the best players and the most excitement tend to be in the Premier League. And the Premier League has more good players in it and almost all the best managers.
Yeah. That is true. At Real Madrid, he's going to be fighting for a title every year, but with one other team, or maybe 2.
I mean, to be a legend around Madrid, I mean,
of course,
you cannot argue with that.
Yeah.
I just wonder if you might find at some point there's great professional satisfaction to be found somewhere else. Once, I mean, he won't have to be. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess he could be at Madrid for so long.
Yeah, he's 20. All right. Well, it was a win. Can you imagine if United had not won this game? The pressure would be, I mean, it's high already, but the pressure.
I felt like
really
we got a bit unlucky in a sense. I mean, I guess we were lucky that there was a break because it meant that we could get some players fitter. But the momentum we got from those 8 goals against Brentford dissipated in a load of nonsense.
Yeah. Yes. True. It would have been better for United to had a game straight afterwards, although the performances have been so inconsistent this season. I don't think you could have said, oh, yeah.
I mean,
we're definitely going to win the next one.
I mean, I'm not sure inconsistent is the word I'd use. I mean, maybe wank.
Yeah, all right. That's true.
I mean, they've been consistent, but just not good. And it is one of those situations where it's not dissimilar to the last Ole season in some ways. There are more excuses here because of the injuries, but do wonder if it would affect the manager's authority in some way when it's this shit. And
it will do if it keeps being shit, yeah. For sure.
Why have any part of to see what he tells?
All right, we're going to move on for that game. We've got United Women, which we didn't do midweek pod. So there's a couple of talking points from the United Women's team. First, out of the Champions League, it's partly a shame with the format in that you get some really big teams meeting each other in the preliminary round.
Mark Skinner made a bit of a knob of himself. I'm talking about that, and that you're right, but you can only say that if you win. Otherwise,
yeah. Yes, that's right. So, I mean, United really only have themselves to blame. There were some odd decisions in this one. I was on the plane while the game was taking place, but went back and reviewed it, and some really shitty defending cost United in the end, as well as a really bizarrely overruled goal, which was perfectly fine. Just nothing wrong with it at all. So it's not just in the men's game that we get crap refereeing.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, they're a good side. They're a bit like us. They've got good players, but they're always going to be chasing until they're properly supported. They've lost. I mean, I know Batley was always going to go. They've lost Russo and Lauren James in the last 2 summers. No side can afford to lose players of that caliber.
And
expect to be among the best. It's just,
we
don't know why they left. Maybe Lauren James wanted to go back to London. Maybe Russo just fancies a change, but you just feel that a serious football club would have managed to keep at least one of those.
Well, right, and we're in the same position with Mary Earps, who's in the last year of her contract as well. And there's just much more money in the women's game right now.
Probably Mary Earps probably wanted to go as well.
Apparently so, yeah.
And Arsenal aren't even that good at the moment. It just feels like they're drawing 1-1 Bristol City now.
Yeah.
But it just feels like if you're a player, you can be sure that they're going to try and succeed.
Yeah.
Even if it might not work, they're going to be trying. And serve Chelsea and that serve City, and it's not serve United. You can't be sure that they're going to try and make it work.
No, and they brought in a lot of players this summer, some of which I think are really good. I mean, Gazer,
loads of talent.
Loads of talent, inconsistent, and Skinner doesn't seem to trust her either, so didn't start yesterday.
But he's bought her knowing that he has to make her trustworthy, because if she was trustworthy, he wouldn't be able to buy her. She would still be a boss.
Yeah,
he's got to make that happen.
Mallard, who's on loan from Lyon, who scored quite a few goals, scored again yesterday, and seems to be like pretty big contribution there. Mizawa in midfield, who took them 10 spot yesterday against Everton, looks kind of interesting there, because she hadn't scored many goals in her career and then scored a bucket load at the World Cup. So I think they're trying to work out exactly how to play her and use her.
Well, she can play in a few positions as well. So yeah, and it's also where she can play and also where you need her.
Yeah. So anyway, it is interesting, because like all that effort to get into the Champions League, and then there's no drop down to another European competition in the women's game. There's been a lot of talk about that, whether there should be, and I suspect especially in English football, there's just so much more money now with a new TV contract that we're going to start to get a concentration of players in the WSL. It might not be happening just yet. Clearly, the performance of United, who are behind Paris Saint-Germain, and Arsenal getting knocked out as well, means that it's not quite in the position of WSL being dominant, but there's so much money there now that it's likely to happen. So we'll see. But again, yeah, we'll when Big Jim turns up and signs a contract on the partial takeover, minority investment, and takes hold of football operations, we'll see whether he has a plan for the women's team as well. Nothing's been said.
No, I mean, presumably, yeah, like the amount of money it would take to make them more competitive, you would imagine will be committed, because it's
not very much. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to be seen to be doing the right thing, even if you don't really care about it. Maybe you do. But yeah, it feels like that would probably be better supported as well.
The new training centre went up this week, and it went up so quickly, this thing. I mean, maybe there's some time for planning.
The prefab.
It's prefab. It's those prefab sheets. It looks cheap as fuck. I mean, I suspect it's one of those that, when you see some housing developments go up, and you know the difference between low-cost housing and otherwise, and it looks very much like that. So in a couple of years' time, it's probably going to look really shit. So and look, we know under the Glazers that everything is penny pinched, everything. So probably this is a piece of shit, but at least they have a base now, rather than like the prefab units that they were in for a long time, and they actually have some toilets and a gym.
Imagine following Harry Maguire in. Goodness me.
Hopefully he's got a separate toilet to go and defile. So
I reiterated. So anyway, yeah. Arsenal now scored against Bristol City, so there you are.
There you are.
That point was only good for about 2 minutes.
Very good. Okay, so it's Charlton, the men's team, the women's team. United have a Champions League game in midweek against Copenhagen. It's obviously a must-win if United have any hope. I mean, the 2 wins against Copenhagen and a victory away at Galatasaray and a point against Bayern, that would probably be enough, but it looks a long road from here.
No, that'd be more. If we beat Copenhagen and win Galatasaray, that's 9 points.
Yeah, that should be plenty. Yeah.
Galatasaray have got 4.
Yeah.
But if they lose both games to Bayern coming up and they lose to us, they'll only be able to get 7.
Yeah. All right.
If we three wins, assuming Bayern beat Galatasaray twice, we'll be that'd be plenty.
All right.
I was more trying to work out a way, if possible, that we could lose in Galatasaray and still go through if we beat
with 6 points.
No, that wouldn't be enough. If we beat Copenhagen twice, that's 6.
Yeah.
If we lose in Galatasaray, who lose to Bayern twice,
Yeah.
Galatasaray will have 7.
Yeah.
So
And we'd had to get a draw at home against Bayern, and
no, because they did play Copenhagen in the last game. So yeah, that we can't lose that one unless we're going to prepare to beat Bayern. A draw in that one. I reckon that if we were to draw, so if we beat Copenhagen twice, 6 points, and then draw in Turkey 7 points. If they lose twice to Bayern, and then and they draw with us, that give them 5 points.
Yeah.
So
it's tight as fuck, is what you're trying to say. And
we're probably good. Now, yeah, we might need to win in Turkey, I guess. But 3 wins. Yeah. Win the next 3, that'd be more than enough.
So it starts on Tuesday night though. Or Wednesday, Tuesday, I forget.
I mean, we played the Galatasaray, probably best performance of the season, maybe. Have we still lost?
Yeah.
I don't think Copenhagen at home will be able to handle us enough.
No, it shouldn't.
I think we'll hammer them.
They are one of the worst teams in the tournament, like both on UEFA coefficient and they just are. So this clearly is one United should win. I think we will win, but have to win as well. There's a lot of pressure on this one. So United's entire business model is built around not only qualifying for the Champions League, but getting to the quarterfinal. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
As I've said, I think if we could stay in it, then we can do something in it after in the new year. But yeah, just losing that Galatasaray game was just such absurd fucking behaviour. All of the behaviours we have witnessed over the last decade, genuinely, losing that game is up there. It's up there with the game with Sevilla last season, where we sat that 2-2 all, we somehow managed to concede two own goals at the end. I felt that Leipzig away game, I felt like the football we played was better. It was that level of total fucking catastrophe that, I mean, it might not be because we might be able to get through it, but Wolfsburg, all of those.
Olympiacos. There's been some absolute dire shite in Europe for the last 10 years. Really, really. It should not include a defeat to Copenhagen, though. I mean, it's unthinkable. I mean, I'm kind of more interested in what sort of team we might get out, because Casemiro's suspended, whether he was fit or not, and he came back with this ankle problem. But are we going to see Mount start? I suspect we might see him again, although Scott McTominay with his 8 passes earned a place in the team.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like maybe that game, then Euro Dixie can probably get away with Mount, Bruno, and Amrabat. But even I'd forgotten Casemiro was suspended, which makes it, in a sense, even more annoying. Didn't maybe try something a bit different. I don't know, play. I mean, what do we actually have to try? It's not like Mainu's available. All we could have done is play Mount. Yeah, I mean, on which point, you'll be Eriksen.
Might be, and he did make a difference against Sheffield United.
That's the thing. He always makes a difference when he comes on, but when you start him, he always has to be taken off. Usually later than he actually is. Yeah.
Yes, he's the kind of player that is good for half an hour, isn't he? I'm not sure you want to pay a player who's good for half an hour a week, 300 grand a week. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense from the economics, but yeah.
No, not true. If you're winning, if it's working, it doesn't mean shit, because there's so much money sloshing about. It's just whether it works or not. At the moment, it's not quite working because players who are playing in front of him aren't good enough. So we would think nothing of it if we were good. It's just for shit. So everything seems like a waste of money.
I presume Højlund will play again. I mean, he was taken off, and there was a bit of a reaction from the away fans when he was taken off again for Anthony Martial. And Ten Hag tried to justify it afterwards by saying we're managing his minutes, which is, I guess, fair enough. He is still young. It's just apart from the lack of a finish yesterday, he looked pretty good when he got the ball. I think he's got all the ingredients we want. He was a sort of couple of shoelaces away from converting twice, really. One great save from Foderingham, where he controlled it really well, shot, save, and then just some longer studs away from converting that Marcus Rashford cross. So it feels like he's nearly there. He's just progressing, and then it was a shame he didn't get the full game. But he presumably will start against Copenhagen.
I'm talking of him. I actually I thought I wrote it down, but maybe I didn't. Garnacho had said something about physical crosses across the front post for him. We're not doing that currently. I was pleased to see that Garnacho said it, because for something that I felt needed to be done, but he doesn't exactly look like that kind of winger either. I thought with Martial, and obviously it's pointless saying this because he's him, physically he looked much more confident. Felt like he was running quick, was putting himself about more physically, he was turning. Yeah, I quite liked his performance, actually. I will never be able to rely on him, and but as someone to have to bring on the bench, I felt like did quite well. But we know,
and maybe he trusts his own.
Him is confident in him as a player,
and maybe he trusts his body more for if he's coming on for half an hour a week rather than having to play the full game.
Gradually building up, isn't it? And there's never going to be a time that I'm pleased to see his name in the starting 11 of a game I want us to. But I think that I think we can see him getting better through the appearances.
Yeah. So, like the injury list, I mean, he's obviously back now. So the players who are out, not quite fit against Sheffield United were, let me pull up my list. Wan-Bissaka, who's back in training. Casemiro has obviously got this ankle problem, but I don't think anyone thinks it's too serious. Mainu, who's been back in training for a couple of months now. Martinez, who's obviously out till forever. Luke Shaw, who's just started ball work as well. And Malacia, who's going to be out for a little bit longer. So, it is slowly getting there where there'll be more options. Slowly. And it looks like Mainu, Casemiro and Wan-Bissaka are going to be the first of that bunch. And then we'll be down to like maybe 3 injured players. Touch wood, no new ones, because Varane came on yesterday as well, which means he's close to being back as well. I wonder, in fact, he may well play the Champions League game. So
you would think so. Varane would probably have playing a better team as well, I think.
Yeah.
So we can get Reguilon and Varane back into that defense.
Yeah.
Are you playing? Let's say Varane's back. Who are you playing next to him?
Lindelof. Probably
not
Harrens. No.
You're not playing. You're not playing. I mean,
the mighty Johnny Evans.
But you might need some reiterations.
Yeah, well, it's true.
I mean,
I'd like to reiterate that Harry's place on the bench is perfectly good.
I mean, I think in the back of my mind, there's also who do I want to play against City? I don't know the answer to this. Whoever I want to play with Varane in that one, playing with Varane on Tuesday, and it's not going to be Evans.
No, I do keep thinking back to. I mean, although look, I don't think Lindelof is good enough. I think his performances are more consistent. The problem is the cup final, where he basically provided the assist for Gundogan's goal after 12 seconds. That's exactly what's going to happen, isn't it? Because not that City chuck the ball forward often, but they can, and know there's a header to be won there every time. So that is the problem with Lindelof playing against City, of course. He's just a bit more consistent. And Harry has the lack of pace problem. So, and Johnny Evans isn't going to play.
I mean,
and so does Evans.
I mean, I think I would probably go for Maguire in that one.
He doesn't like playing him on the left-hand side, though. So you can trust him there, generally.
I mean, I feel like I felt the Arsenal City games coming a bit too soon for us. But it's quite hard to see. I mean, the thing is City will give us space. We have players that can exploit that. Doesn't matter. It's any team. But we could quite easily concede 4 or 5. So,
yeah. Well, we'll get to that one in midweek. I'm not looking forward to that one. But at least there are. If Casemiro's back for the City game, that would help, obviously, because you can play Amrabat and Casemiro there and get some kind of control of those spaces. Those half spaces.
The ability to play 2 midfield players who can do that, because we've never had that. because
No.
Fred wasn't there.
No.
Tomine wasn't there. And talking of Fred, the thing that was pissing me off yesterday, I was still pissed off with Fred. He doesn't play for us anymore. But the imprecision passing is something that has really, particularly, I guess, Mourinho, Ole team. I think Ole teams really sticks with me just because once they got almost good, the imprecision at the passing was something that they never lost. And that was particularly important Fred, but I was noticing it yesterday, just not quite hard enough, too hard, not quite the right, just it's careless more than a lack of technical ability. I think it's a mental weakness. Not lasered in on making sure you always do the right thing.
Fred's interesting because they are not playing him in any kind of defensive role at all. And his stats are completely different than they were at United. He is making hardly any of those challenges, interceptions, all the kind of stuff, and the energy and the legs and making the tackles and stuff like that they was expected to do at United. They're just playing him in an attacking role, basically. He
can do that. He can win the ball high, and he surprise you with his feet.
Yeah,
but I do not miss him.
Okay, I think that's it for this week. Backers, we are going to talk a little bit more about Bobby Charlton, his legacy, performances, and role in the Busby Bays and the 68 European Cup win and all of that stuff. Everyone else will see you in midweek after the Copenhagen game. Got a prediction for that one, Dan?
17-0.
Nice. I think that sounds legit to me. Comfortable win for United. Touch wood. Touching my head for those on the podcast. Thanks a lot, everyone. Backers, stay tuned.